ኣብ ባዕዳ ሃገር ምምጻእ ብጣዕሚ ከቢድ እዩ ብዝተፈላለየ ምኽንያት ዘይትፈልጦ ባህሊ ዘይትፈልጦ ህዝቢ ከምኡ ከዓ ዘይትፈልጦ ቋንቋ ኣብ ከምኡ ምስ ትርከብ ብጣዕሚ ይከብደካ ከም ኣብ ጸልማት ኮንካ ትነብር ዘለኻ ኮይኑ እዩ ዝስማዓካ
If you have a non-English speaking client, they have as much right to access services if they're living in this country as anyone else. And so it may be important to have an interpreter to enable that to happen. And as well as having an interpreter, ideally one should have a trained and qualified interpreter who's gone through training about what interpreting involves and also will have signed an ethical code of conduct and will be very clear about things like confidentiality.
ንዝኾነ ሽግረይ ክገልጽ እንከለኹ ብምልክታት ጥራይ ይገልጽ ነይረ ቋንቋ ስለ ዘይክእል ከምኡ ከዓኒ ናይ ጭንቀት ሕማም ስለ ዝነበረኒ ምስ ሓኪመይ ክረዳዳ ኣይክእልን ነይረ ብጣዕሚ ከዓ ይጭነቕን ይሳቀይን ነይረ
Occasionally, particularly if people don't know many people who are fluent in English, they may bring a child who is very fluent in both languages, and that's really not appropriate to use a child ever as an interpreter. To think about matching where possible for gender, for example, particularly if it's a case of a sexual assault, it's particularly important, but it's generally worth trying to match for gender anyway. Also, one might want to match for age, possibly in an ideal world for religion.
I came across a case whereby I was in the Home Office helping someone to explain the situation, why they are here. And the interpreter was from another country, Europe, Poland. And the asylum seekers was from Congo. But they're both speaking French. Now, the Polish man is speaking French using his own mother tongue kind of understanding. The Congolese is expecting this man to understand what he is saying.
There's likely to be a number of sessions, consultations with the client. It's really important that the same interpreter is booked throughout. A pre-meeting would be a kind of briefing meeting where what you're doing is explaining the context in which you're going to work, which often mental health professionals assume everyone is familiar with, but not everyone works daily in psychiatry or something else. So it's important to talk about the context, to talk about the nature of the meeting. For example, if it's going to be an issue which is going to have particularly serious implications, like it could be an assessment under the Mental Health Act or issues relating to children going into care.
If the trust is not there, then you'll get wrong information and you'll take decision on wrong information, which will not help the client.
To establish the trust, it's very important to be clear throughout the session that the clinician holds clinical responsibility, that the interpreter is merely doing their job and interpreting and is not discussing anything else. In terms of the seating for a session, which is very important, my personal view is that a triangle works best because then everybody can see everyone else. It's very important that there are some ground rules that are made clear for everyone at the beginning, which is normally that everything is said will be interpreted. It's very important that the interpreter and the clinician agree in advance that there will be a slow and steady pace of communication.
I take things step by step. Even when you are talking, I have to stop you in order for me to have time to tell the client what you want. And it's also for me to take the decision to stop the client when they're saying a long sentence. I have to stop them to give me a chance to translate to you what he just said so that the communication is flowing properly.
I would expect an interpreter to carry the vocal expression and also possibly to mirror any kind of non-verbal if it was appropriate, because a good interpreter is actually acting as the person's voice. My personal view is that interpretation should be done in the first person, I, particularly if it's in a mental health or psychotherapeutic setting.
Myself, I tend to become everything now. If I'm in front of a psychologist trying to deal with a client, then I have to do my best to understand the language the psychologist speaks in a way to explain it better to the client. Some of the words you found there, they are really technical to the mental health field.
Different cultures may present same kind of feelings in very different ways, so just to be very mindful of that. I think once the session has ended, it's very important that you spend a bit of time, maybe 5 to 10 or longer if it's required, time with the interpreter.
Working as a professional interpreter is challenging. Helping these people to explain their own stories that they went through back home, whether it be through torture or through different means. It is hard. So sometimes you put yourself in their place.
You do have a duty of care to your interpreter. They're often interpreting in very, very traumatic situations and are as much, if actually not more, susceptible to secondary or vicarious traumatisation as the clinician, in that they haven't had a thorough training in mental health. And also to use their expertise if there were any particular issues that came up in the session that possibly had language or cultural relevance that you had not quite understood.
ሕጂ ግን ብጣዕሚ ሕጉስቲ እየ ምክንያቱ ኢንተርፕረተር ዝትርጉመለይ ቋንቋ ብናተይ ተረዲኡ እቲ ዝብሎ ቋንቋ ንሓኪም ሕማመይ ሽግረይ ክገልጸለይ ክገልጽ ስለዝኽኣልኩ ክሕከም ከዓ ብትኽክል ክኢለ ስለዚ ኣብ ዝተመሓየሸ ህይወት ከዓ ይነብር ኣለኹ ኣነ እውን ቋንቋ እንዳኽኣልኩ ምስ ህዝቢ እንዳተለማመድኩ ጽቡቕ ናብራ ክነብር ጀሚረ